I'm a member of the Movement of Social Democracy. I'm also a geographer at the University of Lausanne. I'm joined today by my colleague, Tamar Keburia, who is in the audience, a historian and a friend from the movement, who is a research associate at the Leibniz Institute for East and Southeast European Studies in Germany. It was Tamar who came up with the name of the series, and we developed the concept together, and we'll be curating and moderating these sessions together, one after another. I want to thank you all for being here. We have received over 100 registrations. Some of the people are, I guess, watching on Facebook. The meeting is recorded, and you will see some parts of it shared in a few days on our social media channels. Few housekeeping rules. As you can understand, we are not using the webinar format, but standard Zoom format. This brings more democratic spirit in the conversation, but it also means that to avoid complications, we ask you that screens of people who are not speakers today is switched off, then your audio is muted throughout the meeting. For the questions, please ask questions in the chat box. For those watching us on other streams, you may write your questions in the comment box and we'll read them during the Q&A session. And for those joining us for the first time, or for those who have not heard about us, the Movement for Social Democracy is a left and green political organization born in the process of resistance against unfortunate consolidation of authoritarianism in Georgia. We started in February 2025. We unite citizens fighting for fair economic system and democracy that prioritizes social welfare as well as environmental justice and public interest over private extraction. And it is from this foundation that we're launching the discussion series. We believe that struggle against the backsliding of democracy or authoritarian consolidation we are facing in Georgia, but also globally, cannot be fought in isolation, as we see similar patterns of power and extraction emerging across our region, but also globally. Our resistance also should pass the national borders. We created this space to connect our immediate survival strategies in Georgia with the long-term vision, movements across with long-term vision across the Eastern Europe, but also globally, to learn from each other and to realize that we are not alone and working in solidarity. And there's no better place to start this conversation than with the ground beneath our feet and the topic that, in a way, kind of has chosen itself, which we called as Whose City Is It? Unmasking the Global Playbook of Authoritarian Urbanism. And we're gathering because, as some of you might know, in Tbilisi and on the Black Sea coastline on the small town of Gonio, these are two places that are at critical juncture of might experience new developments. And as you may know, the government of Georgia has recently classified the transfer of 8.5 million square meters of public land on the outskirts of Tbilisi to the developer from the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Eagle Hills, and classified this as commercial secret, intended to develop mixed-use high-end complex. To understand it in the scale, it's more or less 4 times the entire country of Mexico, or 2.5 times the size of the Central Park. So it's not a small territory at all. But why we're here and why we're talking about this in the international format? Because if you look closely at this deal, even though there are some unique features to the Georgian context, you understand that it's also not a unique case if we are comparing it to other ones globally. What we are witnessing is not kind of local anomaly, but it's more kind of arrival of the global playbook. We are seeing the urban mega projects that rely on authoritarian practices for their implementation and operation, and a model that has been deployed globally, but recently has extended extensively across our region, both in South Caucasus, but also broadly. And when we analyze the track record of this developer, Eagle Hills, and these types of deals globally, we see precise economic mechanism that is at work. It's not just corruption in the wake of sense, but sophisticated method of value extraction from land. And in this context, we look at Belgrade as one of the warnings and one of the earliest examples of such projects. There was the same kind of joint venture model that promised a miracle to the city, but delivered more or less negligible state revenue and captured the city center. We'll hear about the kind of allegations related to the money laundering in this project and some other issues from Eva. But we also look at Zagreb as a proof that these kind of scenarios is not inevitable. When the same playbook arrived in Croatia, citizens organized there just like in Belgrade, and they built broad coalitions inside the country, but also internationally with people in Belgrade. Crucially, they managed to stop the project. This brings me to the specific context of Georgia, where we face also starting backlash against the project. But what's worrying there that this space is largely taken by the far-right voices who are claiming one of the kind of main spot as the critics of the project. And we know that this is a trap, more or less. Looking at the kind of ethnicity of the company means that government is using this as a kind of opportunity to ignore the actual issues with the contract, with the secrecy of the project, and so on. And this brings me to the specific to today's session topic. Tonight we're here to break this kind of isolation of the right-wing voices on the one hand and the secrecy from the government. And we're here to learn about the machinery of the deal in Belgrade, the process of resistance in Zagreb, and also to understand what is unfolding in Tbilisi. And it's my pleasure to welcome our four speakers. I will briefly present them and then pass the word to Eva. So we are joined by Eva Čukić from Belgrade, an architect and urban planner with PhD from the University of Belgrade. Eva co-founded the Ministry of Space, the collective, in 2010, an organization often described as the missing ministry needed to advocate for public interest. Then the next speaker will be Nano Zazanashvili, who is an active member of the Movement for Social Democracy, but is also an architect and the assistant professor at Ilya State University. Nano brings both the crucial insider experience in this process, as she worked at the City Hall as the acting head of the Policy and Planning Division. And from Zagreb, we have Mauro Sirotnak, the coordinator of the Right to the City organization. Mauro is an architect and a researcher active in grassroots movements, and is now a city councillor and the president of the Committee for Spatial Planning in Zagreb City Assembly. And last but not least, Teja Druta is an architect and urban planner working on spatial justice and participatory city making. She's a co-founder of the collective Društvo I Prostor, Society and Space, an active member of the Right to the City. These both organizations were active in shaping the resistance movements against the project that we mentioned. Teja leads educational programs fostering collaboration between residents and planners to reclaim public space. And just brief word on the format for tonight. We'll have contributions of about 7 minutes from each speakers on Belgrade and Tbilisi to keep more or less kind of engaging format. Then Mauro and Teja will contribute together on Zagreb case with slightly longer contribution. I will ask a few initial questions after the individual contributions, and then we'll open the floor to questions from the audience. Thank you for being here. Eva, the floor is yours. You can unmute yourself and have the screen sharing option available.
Yes, I will share a screen because I think it's easier to follow the numbers and the details to understand the background of this project. So also just to mention, Ministry of Space is initiated the opposition to Belgrade Waterfront project in 2013, and we were the key figures of the campaign and the protest. No, maybe I can put like this. Is it better? Okay. No worries, no worries. You're welcome. So yeah, we are, as Datu mentioned at the beginning, we are extremely exposed to all the elements of authoritarian urbanism, such as large-scale mega projects, extra-legal procedures, space which is produced as a spectacle of power, regulated deregulation, and all these elements of lex specialis, strategic partners, strategic project, national importance, special plans, and so on. But there are also emerging civic initiative despite all this situation. Unfortunately, this project also paved the way to other similar projects such as Expo 2027, which we're currently fighting against, and the Trump Hotel in the city center of Belgrade. But to start with a positive note, actually, with whomever we shared our case, they managed to stop similar projects in their country. So I think this, I hope this will bring you luck in your struggles. So Belgrade Waterfront was introduced as a mega project in 2012 in the city center of Belgrade. So this is Sava River, this is the river bank. 100 acres of the river bank was given basically for free to a foreign investor. And this is how it looks today. So you might think that this is a render, but no, this is actually how it looks in the real life. It really looks like you enter the 3D space. So for me, it's important to mention that there are different actors who were involved in promotion of this project. So it all started with a friendly visit from Rudolph Giuliani, the mayor of New York in 2012, visiting our current president, in some moments prime minister, and suggesting that the new city should be built in the area of Sava riverbank. And then suddenly after this visit, the prime minister went to United Arab Emirates, came back richer with a new friendship with Mohammed Al-Abar, who suddenly, as I will quote, said that he will give, so not loan, not credit, nothing, 3.4 billion euros to develop this project, and also the model came with him. And what was presented to the public was this huge development with almost 2 million square meters, out of which mostly are residential buildings, hotels, and office spaces, with, of course, the highest tower in this part of Europe and the biggest shopping mall in this part of Europe. The project was immediately declared as a project of national importance, even though it was never explained why, and it was completely out of the criteria established by the law. It was also promised that the project will be completed in 4 years, and 90 acres developed in 4 different phases. So the promotion, the harsh promotion, started immediately. What was a smart thing that happened was this super shiny model that was brought to Belgrade, the building that was given to the investor to present the project, which moved the entire discussion about the project into the aesthetics of it and this image of progress, which I think it's very, very important, especially if you're coming from poor or poorer countries. Also, every surface in the city was used to promote this project, and they were all given for free to the investor to put flags, whatever, different kind of ads. After almost 2 years, the contract was published. It was available. So, but to see what actually, how it became possible. First, the agreement, bilateral agreement between United Arab Emirates and Serbia was signed. This agreement is available in English language. You can find it on the website of the government. And it has kind of 13 or 15 points of cooperation, but 3 very developed in detail. One is the privatization and the governance management over the airline and airport. Second one, the agricultural land on the north of our country. And the third one was real estate in the city center. Then the government, based on this bilateral agreement, which was even above our legal framework, decided to change the law, first the law on planning and then other laws, to change the general plan to fit this project, but it couldn't be possible in such a short notice, because back then, 10 years ago, there was still some kind of autonomy in the institutions, which is now completely non-existent. So they introduced this new mechanism, which is called special special spatial plan for Belgrade Waterfront. The plan, which is adopted by the government, so not by the parliament, and which allows super fast procedure. Then the lex specialis was adopted by the government, the special law on expropriation that only operates on that territory, and then the contract was signed. And the contract is also available on the site of our government. So for those who are interested to follow, the English version has around 300 pages. The version in Serbian language has around 70, which also says a lot. So the contract revealed that Belgrade Waterfront Company will invest 20 to 150 million euros, not promised through 3.4. Republic of Serbia invests the land, provides the necessary infrastructure, cleans the area, pays the appropriation fees, and the estimated costs are around 2 billion euros, but we don't know because it's top secret still. It's the calculation based on the data that are available. Belgrade Waterfront then loans 280 million euros to the government of Serbia. And at the end, Belgrade Waterfront owns 68% of the waterfront, and Serbia owns 32% of the waterfront. Project deadline is extended from 4 years to 30, and the first evaluation will be in 25 years, which means in 2045. And that's the moment where we will be able to pose some questions around it. So the law on expropriation didn't work in all the cases. There were some private property and some people who were militant enough not to sell their property. But the government decided to do a late night demolitions in April 2016 in midnight, to send 30 people with bulldozers and balaclavas to tie down the people who were there in the area, to turn down their property, to explain that the top city officials were involved in this illegal demolition, but out of pure motives. All of these people became ministers, one of them directly involved into the canopy fall a year ago in Novi Sad, which killed 16 people. This sparked massive protests that were organized by us under the name Don't Let Belgrade Drown. We were able to bring 20 to 30,000 people on the streets of Belgrade. Just to show you the latest data about Belgrade Waterfront when we talk about the economy. So this is the report from the Republic Geodetic Bureau. The price of the square meter in Belgrade Waterfront is 11,475 euros, 1 square meter. And the median monthly net income in Belgrade in that moment was 650 euros. So it's basically completely unaffordable for majority of citizens of our country. On the right, you can see the way how it's promoted in public, and these are all the sentences from the billboards around the city, like the sunny side of your life, etc., promising a better life to all of us. The research done by the Faculty of Architecture and the Faculty of Climatology showed that in terms of environmental conditions, the area of Belgrade Waterfront is 100% ecologically devastated without any opportunity to redo it or revive it. It also showed that this project, the company, is owning to the city of Belgrade 100 million euros. This is by the report on local self-government by the Anti-Corruption Council that is also available online. And Forbes then did a research finding that Belgrade Waterfront actually by 2024 owes to Belgrade 126 million euros. So it's not the economic model where the public or the citizens of Belgrade are gaining any benefit, but the very, very opposite. And finally, since the model is obviously operating very well for those who are part of political and economic elite, they adopted the plan a few months ago to expand the Belgrade Waterfront on additional 300 acres. As you can see, this pinkish color over here, under the same procedure that is now established and operates super fast. And this is that I mentioned, this regulated deregulation by changing the laws constantly. So they introduce the national importance. The government says this is national importance for Serbia. Then lex specialis is introduced, and there's this special plan that is now legalized by the law. We didn't manage to stop Belgrade Waterfront, obviously, as you can see, but what we did manage to do is to politicize the question of urban planning. So in 2018, the movement split into two. Half of us stayed in the Ministry of Space, and we now work with more than 100 initiatives, neighborhood initiatives, informal neighborhood initiatives in Belgrade, stopping unwanted urban development. And then half of the movement decided to go into politics, and they organized the political party Green Left Front, which has now some seats in the parliament and in the city, on the city level as well. And this is some kind of path that we decided to take to continue the fight as the way that for us is only feasible, I would say. Thank you. This is all from my side for now. I wouldn't take more time, and we can discuss then later more details.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you for this compelling and compact contribution. I think it already clarifies a lot of some of the doubts that we have about what we have heard about project in Tbilisi. And now Nano will offer more insights into this and also some of the previous experiences.
Thank you, everyone. I will share my screen. I hope it's visible. Once again, thank you for inviting me in this discussion. My presentation will be a brief description about the Eagle Hills project that is recently introduced to us. My presentation will be descriptive and schematic, and I apologize for that. But I would like to share with you the information that we know so far. For our Georgian attendees of this event, it might be quite known information, but still for our foreign audience might be interesting. So what we know so far about this project, about the Eagle Hills project. This project was introduced to us just recently in October, when on Tbilisi's main avenue, where daily protest demonstrations takes place, this Eagle Hills sales office was open. And the opening was attended by Prime Minister, the Minister of Economy, other high officials, and the co-founder of Mohamed Alabar. And this event was highly televised and was everywhere in the media. So as a result, the Georgian government announced that a $6.6 billion investment real estate project near Tbilisi and Batumi will take place. However, as it seems, the agreement with the company was reached much earlier. We think that it might be in the beginning of 2025. And according to the National Agency of Public Registry, the company was registered in April, according to Georgian law. So what is the project about? These are two areas, as Dato already mentioned. One project is called Tbilisi Waterfront project, and it is planned to be implemented on approximately 600 hectares of state-owned land that is located between capital city of Georgia, Tbilisi, and Rustavi. Another area is and another project is called Gonio Marina, is planned on about 250 hectares of state-owned land on Georgia's Black Sea coast near the city of Batumi. So in total, the state has allocated approximately 800 hectares, 850 hectares of land for these projects. And state-owned lands. These are mainly the state-owned lands. At the moment, the land is still in public property. The ownership status is not changed yet. So as you see on the images, these are very fancy images. In case of Tbilisi Waterfront, as we understand, the project includes like luxury townhouses and villas and hotels as well as retail spaces. And in case of Gonio Marina, it will be more resort type development for seasonal use. Yeah, and these projects are already, although they have no permission yet, legal permission according to our legislation, these projects are heavily advertised in the social media, and the advertising is popping everywhere when you are scrolling or looking in the feed. So yeah, and these projects caused a quite big protest among different groups of citizens in Georgia. So the government or the prime minister had to make two speeches, advertising speeches to show us the profit of the project. But before I jump into that details, I would like to show you what kind of areas are allocated for these projects. So for the Tbilisi Waterfront project, this project is planned on the site of the peri-urban park. We call it Konijala Reserve or Ksanisi Park. And it is located in the floodplains of the Gwari River. This area is notable for its biodiversity and serves an important ecological and recreational resources, both for Tbilisi and Rustavi as well. And I would like to mention that Rustavi is an industrial city. This is an very important green space and public space for both of these two cities. The next project is Gonio Marina project. It is planned near the delta of the Jorohi River. This area is part of the Emerald Network and is particularly valuable in terms of biodiversity. And it is significant that before the company was established, like according to National Public Register, the government of Georgia published a decree in which the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture was asked to adjust the boundaries of the Emerald Network if it was needed for the Eagle Hills project. So we are expecting some decisions in this area as well. A little bit about the company and how it's organized. In this moment, the Eagle Hills Georgia LLC is owned by the investor company Eagle Hills, as well as the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Our ministry holds 33% of share in this company. And also the company's supervisory board includes Deputy Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia, as well the Deputy CEO of Enterprise Georgia, that is also a state entity. The agreement, as Dato mentioned already, the agreement is signed between the company and the agreement that is signed between the company and the state is confidential and not publicly available. And we don't know the details. As I mentioned, this project caused big protest among different groups in Georgia. So the Prime Minister made several announcements or advertising speeches to clarify the importance and the value of this project. And there are some information that we have from that speech, from that advertising video, as well from his speech in the parliament. So according to him, this project will create an economical miracle and will have a huge impact on the country's economy. It will create 24,000 jobs during the construction process, 8,000 permanent jobs. Direct economical impact of the project will be approximately $4 billion. Annual tax revenue will be approximately $185 million. The country will receive 33% of project's profit during 10 years, and construction activities will be carried out by local construction companies. So we know very little, and these numbers are also quite unclear and speculative from this perspective and from the experience of other countries. And what we expect, we think that if this project will be realized, it will have a significant damage on the green infrastructure, as well as nearby Tbilisi, also on the Black Sea coast. And we think that the government will bypass all the regulations that might hinder the process of the development. And also we think that it will be the public participation or public involvement in the decision-making process will be impossible, and it will the government will do everything to stop this sort of intervention. So it will be very much undemocratic process. So these are our expectations so far. I will stop here, and if there will be some more questions, I will try to answer during the Q&A session.
Thank you, Nano. Thank you for all these details about the project. We see that there's already some similarities between what Eva has told us, but I guess more are to be expected. You spoke about the resistance to the project and the fact that there are different groups. And now I think it's the best moment to pass the word to Mauro and Tejan here about both about the resistance, but also, as we called it, like flexibility of the capital, of kind of to be able to come back after some of the defeats that it experienced on the Croatian case. Please.
Hi to everyone. Let's just, we want to share presentation too. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so hi everyone. I will be starting and I will be continuing. And I would like to share some experiences that can show how, based on solidarity movement and also exchange of practice with comrades from Belgrade, managed to, as Eva mentioned in the beginning, stop the privatization and commodification of large part of the city in Zagreb, pushed by the corporation of Eagle Hills. So just for the intro, I'm coming as coordinator of Right to the City, which is a movement that started fighting against privatization and commodification of public space in early 2000s on the wave of larger privatization processes happening in many post-socialist countries. So there's been, let's say, 20 years of activities in our organization and building solidarities and networks, both locally, regionally, and internationally. To explain a bit how the Eagle Hills came to Zagreb, it all started in 2019 when the former mayor, which you can see here in a blue suit on the left, Milan Bandic, who was in power for almost 20 years in a row, signed a memorandum of agreement in Dubai with Sheikh Mohammed Alabar and bringing the whole crew from Zagreb city departments with him. This agreement was signed in secrecy, without anybody knowing what is the content, without having public information that the city delegation is going to Dubai and that there is any plans for developing a certain part of the new Zagreb to be developed. It's also interesting to quickly fast forward to explain the situation today. The mayor is currently dead. He passed away in 21. The former director of the Institute for Spatial Planning on the left has also been laid off from the city of Zagreb department, and now he's actually working in the Ministry of Maritime and Traffic. Also, the other colleagues and in the middle are fired from the city, and the lady with the blue hair has been promoted as advisor to the Ministry of Physical Planning. This is just a bit to explain how this, although the project was stopped, the people who were behind it had very different perspectives and futures. So basically, the memorandum of understanding was signed in March 2019 between the city of Zagreb and Eagle Hills Properties. And also, as Eva mentioned, this agreement can also still be found online, and we can also share the link if you're interested. The main difference between the Serbian context and maybe other projects such as Budapest is that Eagle Hills was here in the case of Zagreb, negotiating with the city administration, which has limited decision making when it regards to the laws, and not the state, as in other examples, such as in Serbia, Hungary, and other countries where Eagle Hills operate. So this is important to say because the decision making on the city level can regard the spatial planning and bylaws, but it cannot change the national laws. So it's a quite important distinction to be made from other projects and investment where Eagle Hills operates. So the hidden content of the memorandum of agreement, when the public heard that there was this discussion and there was a rumor that a city administration and leadership went on to sign sell-off of large part of the city, basically to the unknown developer, an investigative journalist, Danka Derify, managed to come into not property, but to see the very memorandum. And with the public pressure, the city administration was obliged to publish the whole memorandum publicly. After several months, it has been hidden and unknown. So the area that was being negotiated to be developed, developed under Marx, so is a part of New Zagreb, covering almost 1.1 million square meters, situating huge amount of public spaces such as hippodrome, I don't know how to translate this, and Velesa, meaning fairgrounds, which were one of the main fairgrounds was one of the main creator of this southern part of the city, bringing retail and industry and developing, creating jobs and communities around it, both locally but also internationally, having a huge symbolic value for the city of Zagreb. So basically, all this area was under negotiation to be developed under unknown conditions. So promises were made that this former Zagrebački Velesajm, so fairgrounds, is supposed to be given to the developer. And it's important to notice that there was a lot of, and still there is a lot of listed heritage within this fairgrounds complex. And the city government communicated, especially the head of department, that this listed heritage is not that important and that lifting of the protection can be done if there is interest of capital. So they had a very permissive and liberal approach towards foreign investment and very little interest in protecting the heritage and public spaces. The memorandum and the whole hidden story of developing part of New Zagreb and selling it off to the developer for private investment triggered a huge outrage of both citizens, civil society, and also different actors such as researchers and professional organizations. So with the engagement of civil society and activists, there was a huge protest engagement in this process in 2019, where initiatives engaged with civil society started organizing protests whenever there would be press releases of the mayor and some kind of press show-offs. The civil society and activists would kind of clash the presentation of the mayor with the banners, protests, and different symbolical actions, which raised visibility of the protests and basically outrage of the people who were against the project. Also to show several layers which grew, which managed to create big, let's say, solidarity chain, was also using the civil society and practices that were developing in Belgrade, and also engaging in different forms of sharing knowledge, but also academic circles that pushed for pressure and shows the damage of the project to be done in Zagreb. So this was also one of conference of Inura, a network of academic circle that was based in Zagreb in 2019, and there was also an open letter of different researchers, prominent scholars that wrote internationally open letter to the mayor against the development of the project. As I mentioned, big impact was the exchange of knowledge with comrades from Belgrade. And as Eva has shown, the experience of protests and how the development of Belgrade Waterfront was done, to learn on the steps and also how to stop the project. So protests in Belgrade was also an inspiration for organizing in Zagreb. And there were different protests and different initiatives in Zagreb already that were happening against the mayor and privatization of public space, which, with the engagement of civil society and activists, managed to gather all different initiatives into big protests against the development of Eagle Hills. So different actions and initiatives were organized during this period in 2019 and 2020, which managed to communicate the, let's say, all the negative sides of the project, what this privatization means, and how it will affect the public space, traffic, and also the overall concept of commodification and privatization of a big part of the city. And these organizations of different actions culminated in a protest on the main square in city of Zagreb that happened in February 2020, which gathered actually 20,000 people in the square. And this was at the verge when the city assembly was supposed to vote on the changes of general urban plan that should accommodate the private development of Eagle Hills and basically allowing, by changing the general urban plan, the development of their project. So this massive protest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest protest against, focused on, let's say, spatial justice in Croatia, managed to create such a pressure that the coalition that was in force in Zagreb with the mayor and his party and the party that is governing on the national level, the Croatian conservatives, the Democrats, to shift and basically erode their coalition because of very particular interests, and basically the very general urban plan has failed to be voted. So these different actions and in front of the Zagreb city administration and the massive protests managed to cancel the changes of the general urban plan. And with the death of the mayor, which followed in February 2020, basically also stopping, let's say, this corrupt government that was ruling for 20 years in the city of Zagreb from winning the local elections that were happening in 21. So basically, I would just unwrap a little bit on how the process of fight against the development of Eagle Hills and privatization of part of the city, but also different other struggles on spatial justice, managed to create and deliver a process that completely shifted the way the city is being planned and how the public property is being managed. This whole process influenced a lot the change of the local government in the city of Zagreb with the local elections in May in 21, where the new green-red coalition took over the city. So basically this shift marked the change of decision-making from the top to the bottom regarding spatial planning, where combining the interest and developing district councils and capacities of councillors at the local level in districts with institutional support and political will shifted the spatial planning, let's say, back to the community. So I will just briefly explain a bit. Many of you might be familiar with this ladder of participation, where usually in our city governments, there is very little real participation. Usually the spatial planning and decision making is based on formal participation with public consultation, if even that. And basically this process of shifting the spatial planning towards district council was kind of trying to go a bit up along this ladder of participation, not all the way towards citizen control, but at least by creating partnership with district councils and new city administration and planners of the city. So I won't be long on this, but basically the usual process of drafting the spatial plan was kind of inverted, where usually the there was informal discussion introduced at the beginning of the process, where the district councils were collecting and engaging with citizens in their neighborhoods to collect initiatives for changes of the general urban plan. And this was done at the very beginning, even before the city assembly drafted a decision which triggered the changes of the general urban plan. So basically, with the political will and this inspiration from civil society and this know-how that was built through activists or organizing over decades, was shifted towards also municipalist platform and managed to create a certain platform for participation in drafting the new general urban plan of the city of Zagreb. So the institutions were forced to go out of their, let's say, offices. Well, this image does not really represent it, but still, basically, the Institute for Spatial Planning was going out towards district council to explain the process of spatial planning and how it works and what it entails in their neighborhoods. So there was a strong negotiation between, let's say, the district council and different city offices that produced very thorough changes of the general urban plan in the city of Zagreb, which was voted this year and was changed for the first time, putting let's say, public interest in favor of private interest after decades of, let's say, privatization and commodification of public space in Zagreb. So this is a bit to give an overview of how the fight against Eagle Hills and organizing of activists, researchers, civil society managed to not only push the project away, but also create a new model of governance and participation in spatial planning. And I will leave now floor, that is the screen, to Thea, where she will explain how the shift of capital investment of Eagle Hills happened from, let's say, defended Zagreb towards Croatian coast.
Hi to everyone. I will just be actually short, and then if you have questions, then it's better that we answer some questions. Just for like context, so following the breakup of Yugoslavia in the 90s, we underwent a large-scale privatization of state-owned assets. And those included hotels, resorts, and tourist facilities that were quite developed in the Adriatic coast, in the Dalmatian coast especially. And so local private investors, such as one called Jako Andabak, bought up these properties for little amounts of capital. Then in this privatization processes, there was a lot of speculation with that. And then they acquired more and more. But it kind of, these processes, the whole of Yugoslavia and the whole of the state went through these processes, and people kind of, I think, numbed out to what was happening with tourist resorts. And that's why he had like this big amount of hotels and resorts. So it was not state-owned. And in 2021, after the situation in Zagreb, Eagle Hills bought up those places. So the acquisition was around, well, the agreement is not really public. So, but we know the acquisition was for about 100 million euros for about 11 hotels or camps, a huge amount of property. And they bought up 70%. And afterwards, the 30% were little stakeholders, and they were pushed out, or it's called a squeeze out for those 30% for only 5 million euros. And after that, Eagle Hills bought up another tourist complex for around 200 million euros. And now they're one of the biggest owners in tourism in the Croatian coast. there is no real restriction they are subjected to, as maybe only to competition law, but those regulations are declared by the state. And the other restrictions that they eventually have are those of spatial planning regulations and concession regimes to the maritime public goods. So we have a coastal zone that cannot be used except for some kinds of concessions. So in these few years, they bought up, that's around, I think, 15 huge hotel resorts. And the conditions that they have is only to invest in the next few years around 30 million into developing those hotels or building new ones. The main problem that we can see today is that the state is kind of deregulating spatial planning acts more and more, which will probably have similar effects. Detrimental effects to the coastal line. That's it from us. Thank you.
Sorry, my microphone was off. I was thanking you for your contributions and also for making connections between different cases. I know it's not so easy, especially when maybe you have not heard much about Tbilisi context yet or the project, but there are some clear similarities. I think I will ask only one question and then open the floor for others. I'm interested in how, and maybe Nano can reflect on this from Georgian perspective on other cases. How does this process of crafting legal exceptions and special laws work? Like, where did the initiatives come from? Now, considering Eagle Hill's experience globally, you could assume also that they have a legal team that maybe they have a legal team that know what to target, or maybe which kind of markets to target in terms of the kind of volatility of the legal landscape. So I just wanted to hear about how, how does this happen, and who are the actors who are initiating legal changes, and where does the initiatives come from, and so on. Maybe we can start with Belgrade as was the first case.
Yeah, I also believe that they have a really strong legal team who has all this necessary knowledge. But I have to say that our campaign back then and generally is not to target the investor. Investor is not, they're not the problem per se. The government is the problem. So if they are allowing these changes to be made and to favor only private investor, then we have a problem. So basically what happened here is that the current ruling party has complete majority. Basically, there is, in one moment, we didn't even have the opposition in the parliament. So it was like, very strong regime in that sense. So they could adopt and change whatever they wanted to do, and then they did it. But as I mentioned, Belgrade Waterfront case was serving as an exercise. What can be done? The sky is the limit. And now when they really kind of PhD the process, the procedure, now they are doing it in a few weeks. So that's not the problem. It's basically they're unstoppable. And on the other hand, since we are more and more detached from the EU, you cannot even look at some, let's say, supporters or any kind of help from the outside to fight these struggles, like in terms of rule of law or any kind of accountability, right? So I can see in Montenegro and in Albania are completely different examples. So the embassy representatives of different countries are very interested into what is happening over there and going to these panel discussions and kind of being very involved about these foreign direct investments that are coming into the country, especially from the United Arab Emirates. So our case was a bit different, and we'll see also what will happen. I have to say that I'm also kind of not convinced that this will sound completely crazy, but if you're a person who is like 10 years involved into this case study, you will understand. So I think that this guy is not even like the real investor, but basically like a person that you can rent to, like present himself as to be a canvas for the local political and economic elite who are using their power to kind of extract the resources that are now available to those who are in power.
Yeah, maybe I could follow up on this. And I'm also not that sure. Now, what Iva, you mentioned that EU, non-EU, like looking at the Zagreb case, we were lucky that they didn't manage, that it was easier for them to reach out to local government, which was not ruling nationally. Because if they had an agreement with the national government, I'm sure they would change the law, basically, because they didn't have access at that time to the ruling party on the national level. And since there was a coalition on the city level, so basically there were negotiations between two different parties of the ruling mayor, there were some, let's say, cracks where basically the pressure could be made between civil society activists and, let's say, pressure groups. So it's important to realize where are these cracks also and where can pressure be made. And in case of Zagreb, it's kind of easier. I'm not sure if this is correct to say, but having it on the municipal level and not on the state level, it's much more harder when you have the decision-making body, which is drafting the laws and basically creating these black holes for the investors on the state level. So yeah, I think the post-socialist countries, also in EU, are very fragile in this context with private investments. But as Eva mentioned earlier, this international capital is aiming for these weak democracies and let's say where there is lack of public control and over assets and decision making. So it's kind of detecting weak target and what somebody mentioned, they surely have big legal infrastructure and analyzing how they can, let's permeate the lawmaking, spatial planning making processes and basically draft plans and selling of properties as they need.
Thank you, Mauro. We have one question on the, let's say, more on the geopolitical level. The question is, do you have any indications that the real estate investments on behalf of Eagle Hills come along with the broader bilateral agreements between UAE and Croatia or Georgia, as well, similar to the examples Eva referred to? Since their projects all seem so speculative, I'm often still a bit puzzled on the why behind it. And it's one of the questions that I wanted to ask at the end of the conversation. So maybe it's basically part of this. So go ahead, please, if you want to reflect on this. Maybe Nano, you can start because there is something about this to be said in terms of Georgian case, maybe.
Yeah, what I have seen so far, it seems that these negotiations are started quite early, before the announcement of the project itself. And I think that these are like not only Eagle Hills is searching for such kind of investment, but the government is also very willing to have such partners as well, because there is big room for speculations. And also in case of Georgia, I think that now after all these events, a lot of money that was coming from the EU has been stopped. A lot of projects have been stopped. Financing has been stopped that was provided to the government. And there is I think that the government is also searching for some economical activities, big scale economical activities as well, but we still don't know whether it will have a real impact or not. It's also a question. Yeah, I would also like to add about this very vague landscape of urban planning in our case as well, that if you look at the planning decisions, especially in the last years, we see this acceleration of big scale urban projects that are bypassing the law or urban planning regulations, where there is a big interest from the political leaders as well, and that are carried out on behalf of green spaces. So this was the tendency before this Eagle Hills project, and now in this project we see the acceleration of all these tendencies. And I also would like to mention that the public participation process is in Georgia does not exist in urban planning decisions, I may say. So the landscape that we have now provides a very good soil for such developments, unfortunately. I don't know whether I have answered the question or not, but maybe other participants can also address.
I can jump in quickly. So in the situation of Serbia, the project was actually directly tied to a broader bilateral agreement between Serbia and United Arab Emirates. And then, and the same agreement was made between the government of Montenegro and United Arab Emirates. So it's basically the agreement that is exceptionally favorable, gives exceptionally favorable conditions to the investors. So from the land conversion and planning authority, even to different financial guarantees and legal protection. So all the agreements and all the legal changes were made thanks to this bilateral agreement. And as I mentioned, you can find it on the formal website of the government of Serbia, English version, and you will find the chapter on the real estate. You will see actually how it's regulated. So that is always the first step. We have the same agreement with China, for example, for the infrastructural project. So this is something that became kind of a common sense.
Thank you, Eva. We have one more question from Susie Harris-Brand. Thank you, Susie. The question is related to the opposition. Could the panel speak a bit about opposition led by official political parties in their local context? It seems the presence of the UAE investors is not based on partisan support for one particular ruling regime. For example, in Georgia, the UAE first engaged with the UNM party, which was the previous ruling party. Nano and Dato briefly mentioned Alliance of Patriots of Georgia. This is the party that organized the recent protests. But I would love to hear more about the role of official opposition, let's say the political opposition, or lack of thereof in other countries. Thank you. I had similar question about the resistance in Zagreb, and maybe we could hear a bit more. You spoke about a bit already about this, but maybe how, like, what were the practices, how these groups came together, and yeah, what was the role of the active kind of existing political parties? Because in Georgia we're struggling with this. On the one hand, we have the far right that speaks about invasion of Arabs and so on, and the Arab cities. And on the other hand, we have right-wing groups like with more or less the similar ideologies that say that, well, we don't have actually the space for pushing away any foreign direct investment, which is more or less sacred thing in Georgia. And we are trying to find a kind of in the other space that would speak about the actual wrong parts of the project and the deal that is behind it.
I just wanted to note before talking about like the aspect of political parties, which I think Maura is a better person to say, in the aspect of the role of civil society and associations of architects. So I have to note that in Croatia we have this, I think, long-standing struggle not only with associations but different types of organizations of fighting for spaces, extremely on the coast and in Zagreb mostly. So because that is where the capital goes to, and there are kind of strong connections still with architect associations with the general public. And then when something is happening, there is this kind of effort to state the problems from a professional angle, and it still has a wide acceptance, like from a wider public. And that kind of helped in a lot of times that something was happening, it helped. And you can say,
Yeah, I can also follow up on this, that usually this is not to be confused with Order of Architects and Chamber of Architects, because Association of Architects is kind of on a voluntary basis.
Yeah.
And they usually push for, let's say, the social aspect of the city and fight for the spatial justice. And their role is doing tenders, so basically they're funded through that. But there are different sparks as different collectives organized within Association of Architects in different cities, and they usually trigger larger movements also within. And this is maybe interesting in forming coalitions between activists and this, let's say, progressive parts of the profession, where these professional associations usually, have this stamp and the name, and whenever the activists, grassroots movements need kind of institutional support to kind of send a public letter, the strategy was always to use these institutions, which are on the progressive side, to stamp the letter, to kind of diffuse it through their own institutions. This was always a strategy, and it still is, to use these platforms, and also with the national network main organization, which is umbrella organization of Association of Architects, kind of has this advocacy power towards the national level. So this is very good tactics. What Thea mentioned, there is a tradition of forming coalitions with this kind of associations. And regarding the opposition and the party, regarding the Zagreb case, basically the fight for spatial justice and fight against privatization and dispossession that was happening after privatization of 90s, but also ongoing in 2000s, created different forms of struggle, of citizen initiatives, which gradually grew into movements. And there was kind of maybe not linear, but there was a process of collectivizing these struggles. And we can say that the opposition that took over the city in 21, the political party, the platform actually, was shaped on these citizen initiatives and movements. So basically, the very fight against privatization of public spaces created the new platform that basically created a new political platform and took over the city in 21.
And I would just state, not only in Zagreb, where it's a green left party, but in different cities where it's different parties, maybe more liberal ones with more liberal politics, but they were kind of opposing the state party, which is actually in power for a long time now. So there is an opposition that can hold them to. That can hold them to explain what is happening in space and hold accountable, and I think that is quite important in these in the creation case.
Yeah, but basically, to what they're saying is that all bigger cities usually have opposition government of the national government, where Christian Democrats hold the national government, and all bigger cities are kind of having progressive, let's say, central left governments. So there is this friction between big cities and the national government continuously, let's say, over decades.
Nano, do you want to add something? Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Mauro. Sorry, I was muted. We have one question and one comment. One from Ia Eradze. Could you please elaborate, especially for Belgrade, on the socioeconomic impacts of the projects, on impacts on employment, small businesses in the area, inequality, so on. So basically, what's the impact? We'd like to know, I think. Thank you.
Yes, so I mentioned several things, but to go more into detail, so in terms of employment, it's mostly temporary and low value jobs. So those are either short-term construction jobs, which are not stable, or some precarious contracts for the workers on that territory. The work force that was promised through planning, management, and let's say creative industries, etc., didn't happen yet. The small businesses that were in the area, they faced the displacement. So because of the rising rent and the spatial exclusion, there was also I mentioned the prices of the apartment. So it's between 5,000 euros per square meter to 11,500 euros, which is totally unaffordable. And on top of it, there are many interviews with the financial director of Belgrade Waterfront, who is claiming that the households there are mostly or like even almost 100% bought in cash, and they don't question the origin of the money. And it's publicly available, so you can also track it on Forbes if you want to read it in English. So basically, it's kind of a money laundry machine, if we understand correctly what he wanted to say. And at the end, it also has almost zero economic spillover to the budget of the city. Up until now, they are owning more than 100 million euros to the city of Belgrade. So that's in short.
Maybe if I can follow up, actually, I've remembered on what Nano was mentioning before on, let's say, this depleted spatial planning procedures. Not to be understood that in Zagreb these procedures were respected, and in Croatia we had these big democratic procedures. There were none, especially in Zagreb, and it's important to see what are possibilities in these cases. For instance, over 10 years ago, the initiative of citizens gathered and created their own citizen assembly on development of part of the neighborhood. So it's important to see what are the tools when there are no formal processes to invent them also and create pressure, and to organize collectively through district council or certain citizen initiatives, kind of to create pressure and create kind of collective decision making, even though the formal procedures do not allow it.
We have just one more comment from Vera Gogochia that basically responds to the kind of time when this project was introduced in Tbilisi. So the given situation on the unprecedented limitation on freedom of expression and protest in Georgia, the fate of this project becomes even scarier. Unfortunately, this project came only after all the elections, both national and local, which is true. But as a kind of reflection on this, which is partly because it relates to one of my research interests and one of the projects that I've been studying, Georgia had this only one period in its political history when we had this luxury of having different political parties ruling at different levels. The central, let's say, on the level of parliament, it was the Georgian Dream, the current ruling party, and on the city level, we had United National Movement that was also mentioned today. And at the time, this kind of conflict was masterfully resolved by Georgian Dream government because the projects that one of the mega projects that were initiated by one of the main supporters of the Georgian Dream, was blocked by the city hall. The central government changed the law that basically changed the category of the construction of the mega project that was initiated at the time, which became the prerogative of the central government to approve because of its increased importance. So with this example, I just wanted to kind of outline that when we're speaking about mega projects, the desire to bypass the legal exceptions exists from the very early stage. And I think we should be less hopeful on the fact that there is maybe one of the elections coming, and the fact that there is more political freedom, but just I have a hope that there will be some form of local organizing and ability to learn also from other cases. And with this, we have unfortunately approached the end of our discussion. And I want to extend a sincere thank you to our speakers, Thea, Mauro, Nano, and Eva. Thank you for your time and for the precision of your analysis, but also kind of generosity to share your experience. I think particularly for people in Georgia, it can be very inspiring to hear about your battles and your success on the different levels. I must also acknowledge the team behind the scenes of this discussion. First of all, special thanks goes to Salome Japiashvili, who interpreted the whole session, and we're really grateful to her. Moreover, while you see only me on the screen from the movement, this event is the result of the intense collective work by the movement overall, and from the technical setup to the conceptual framework, I'm grateful to everyone in the team that joined in this process. And of course, thank you to everyone who joined us in the discussion, both on Facebook and here on Zoom. Tonight, we kind of reinforced the crucial truth that if the authoritarianism operates with this global playbook, copy-pasting the extraction models from Belgrade to Tbilisi, then our resistance also should not remain local. And Mauro and Thea showed us a great example together with Eva in Belgrade how this worked. And we cannot fight these battles in isolation. The Eagle Hills, of course, is one example of among many, both in terms of mega projects, but also kind of the ways of extracting different resources locally. And yeah, this is just the first chapter of the discussion series that we want to host in the upcoming months. There will be the next episode that will soon announced, and we'll host in about 2 months. And until then, please feel free to reach out to us, whether you have feedback or critical questions or suggestions for future topics. We want to hear them. Thank you again for standing with us in solidarity. Thank you for everything. Thank you.